Hey, it's the Profit Answer Man, Rocky Lalvani. If you're new to the podcast, check out my interview with Mike Michalowicz. It's episode number 2. If you want to hear about each chapter in the Profit First book, go back and listen to episodes 3 through 13. Episode 1 is the why and how. On the Profit Answer Man, we learn money mastery without all the complicated accounting mumbo-jumbo using a simple system. Your accountant is busy documenting your transactions and creating a rearview mirror of what happened. My guess is you don't even look at the reports they sent you. If you're like most business owners, you struggle with this, and it's not your fault. We aren't taught money in school, and accountants aren't taught how to be profitable. The Profit First system created by Mike Michalowicz works, and he certified me to help you implement the system in your business. Remember, the new equation is sales minus profit equals expenses. Let's face it, without cash flow, you can't pay your employees, buy needed materials, or pay your mortgage and support your family. I help you to do that and more, so you can focus on the parts of the business you love and receive the rewards for your labor and investment into your business. The stronger you are as a business owner, the more jobs you create, the better we are as a country. Small business owners are the backbone of America, and for that, you deserve to be well rewarded. Just remember, more revenue does not equal more profit. That's why we focus on the bottom line. I'm excited for our guests today, because so often when you say profit first, we get a lot of pushback. And people think it's evil and immoral to put profit first. The problem is they don't get it. The purpose of business is to generate a profit so that you can hire people and serve your customers. You can't do that and reward your employees without profit. You'll struggle to pay your suppliers. So today we're going to chat about the right way to look at profit and people. Jeff Morrill co-founded Planet Subaru, your undealership, in 1998 and built it into one of the most successful privately held car dealerships in the United States. He later started other businesses in automotive, retail, real estate, telecommunications, and insurance that generated over $100 million in annual revenue. His achievements in building profitable and ethical companies have been featured in a variety of national media, including USA Today, Entrepreneur Magazine, Automotive News, the Boston Globe, and others. Jeff is the author of Profit Wise: How to Make More Money in Business by Doing the Right Thing. He's donating all of his royalties to charity. Let's meet Jeff and hear his story. Welcome to the Profit Answer Man, Jeff Morrill. It's great to have you join us today.
Thanks for having me on, Rocky.
Can you share with the audience a little bit about what you do?
Sure. I like to take Joyce Carol Oates. She's a novelist, and she starts her novels with the last line in mind when she sits down to write them. So let's talk about where I'm sitting right now. I'm talking to you from Charlottesville, Virginia, and I'm here even though all of our businesses are just south of Boston, Massachusetts. And that happened because I started the very first one, Planet Subaru, in 1998. My wife and my business partner and brother, John, moved up there to buy a bankrupt Subaru dealership. And then over the years, we added some other businesses in various industries, including insurance. We have kind of an odd duck business, the cell tower infrastructure, and real estate, kind of typical stuff you'd expect of people to get into. And I'd done that. It took about 15 years, which put me in the mid-2010s. And I discovered very quickly that burnout had just hit me like an asteroid. And I was fortunate at that time to have built a team in advance that could run the businesses without me. And my wife and I planned to return to our native Virginia and live a new life. it wasn't so 6 and 7 day focused on working my tail off. So that's why we find ourselves now in Virginia, and I'm no longer the quarterback on the field throwing the passes of the businesses and taking the sacks and getting carried off on a stretcher on a bad day. I'm more like a coach on the sidelines, communicating with the team and making sure that we're remaining true to the values that founded the business, and make sure that we're honoring what we call the undealership commitment in the retail business, which is to provide a dealership experience that's not like a typical dealership. So we have transparency in our advertising. The team is very much unlike what you'd expect. We have several female technicians, a very diverse workforce, and no pressure when you buy the car. So it's a different kind of model. And my job is just to make sure that everybody stays focused on that goal.
So you basically systematized your business and you took yourself out of it and you let it run. Was it hard to let go?
It was, and I find other business owners in the same position. I think there are a lot of impediments to business owners doing what I did, and I can say that because they were hard for me. And maybe the first one that comes to mind is just that sense of identity that you get from running a business. And it's really interesting. I mean, I'm not famous at all in the Boston area. It's a pretty major metropolitan area, but within the business community on the South Shore, I'm pretty well known, and I kind of came to enjoy that I could call someone up and they know who I was, and I see now that I'm living in a state where I grew up that people may know that the Jeff that I was when I was a kid on the Little League team, but they couldn't care less and have no interest in me as a business person. So that's been a weird transition, and I was ready for it, so that's okay. But it is a little strange, and if for those business owners that are really tied up in the identity part of it, that can be tough. And so I'd say that's probably the obvious one. Another thing is that people just get driven by inertia, and they just get into a habit and a routine, and they don't know what they would do. A lot of entrepreneurs are very energetic, and the thought of like trying to figure out what they would do if they didn't go into their business every day might be a little too intimidating, so they just keep doing the same thing. And that's fine, except I'll give you one experience that happened to me, and it actually happened after I moved back to Virginia, fortunately. But had it happened before, while I was still very operationally involved, it would have been a very big problem for our business. And that was, I was involved in a very serious mountain biking accident. And I was, it took me a year to learn how to walk again, and I was totally incapacitated for several months. It was very, very bad. I was lucky to escape the incident with my life. And in the business, had it depended on me being there and making the decisions and being that axle of the wheel where all the spokes came to me and ran through me, I think it would have caused a lot of problems. So I was fortunate that in my situation, I'd already made all those difficult decisions to separate my powers and divide them into the team of people that we had to do it. And it was a good reminder to me about how important it is to recognize your life can change in a moment. And just because you're very happy to be a technician in your business and work it hard every day, there's no guarantee that will be able to continue indefinitely because things happen.
And that's what I tell business owners. Life happens. I think back in 2019, everyone was jubilant. Oh, we don't have to worry about anything. Why do we have to worry about these things? And then COVID hit, and that was one wake up. But for many other business owners, health is a wake up. Divorce is a wake up. All these things can come at you. And more than likely, at some point in life, you're going to face them. And so, as we talked about before, if you systematize your business and you make sure that it's runnable without you, that's not to say you can't be involved. Go do the parts you love, but make sure you're replaceable, because it makes your business more valuable and it makes it much safer overall. And then you can sleep easier at night.
Yeah. And it's funny too, just not to put too fine a point on it, but so many business owners I know are very concerned about their legacy. They've been very concerned about making sure they leave something behind of value, either to the charitable organizations that they want to leave their wealth behind to, or maybe it's a family business that they want to build for the benefit of the following generations. And they're so selfish not to consider that that in the interests of other people, they need to figure out a way to devolve that responsibility and make sure that it's shared, and that in your absence, which can, as in my instance I learned, can occur very quickly, that the business can retain its ability to function and retain its value.
And that it should. And we've talked about that on many episodes. Just before we hit record, we were talking about Profit First and how you used to, within the dealership, run your numbers, and how you were kind of shocked that other businesses didn't do the same. So I'd love for you to comment on that.
Yeah. So what we were talking about is in the car business, which is, like I said, we have various businesses, but it's the one that I'm most familiar with, and because it was the one I spent most of my time on, and it was just the most interesting to me. It's a very dynamic and challenging business. In any case, the manufacturers, because it's a franchise arrangement, they require incredibly detailed financial results to be reported to them on a monthly basis. So we don't have a choice to hire an accountant or to have a full-time controller in the business. I mean, it's just understood that you're going to be sending those reports, and it will not be tolerated for you not to send those reports in. So the secondary benefit of us sending those reports into the manufacturers is that we have them available, and they're very detailed. They're 5 long, like legal pages. And the first page is the balance sheet, but we get into very significant detail on the succeeding pages, like on the vehicle sales part of the business, where we have to submit the margins on each vehicle line. So in Outback, obviously, we're going to have a different margin than say an Impreza or a Forester. And the manufacturer wants to track that. But obviously, it's very helpful for us, too, to know how much we're making on each vehicle line when it comes to stocking them and ordering them. And if we're making twice as much on one car, to the extent that we can get more of those, we're going to try to find a way to obtain more of those for our inventory, and fewer of the cars that we're not making any money on, or in some cases, because the car business is so competitive, we can even lose money selling new vehicles. Although not right now. It's been it's a lot of demand right now. It's a very unusual time. And the same thing for service. I mean, they want to track how many hours of labor are sold on each repair ticket and those kinds of things. But maybe more importantly than anything, it was the thing that I always paid the most attention to at the end of every month, is what was our net profit? Because even though it's we'd always want it to be more than what it was, but that was sort of my signal. The company was telling me, all right, do we need more of what we're doing or less? And generally we were profitable. There were just a few months in our history where we didn't lose money, but that's like a 4-alarm fire when you get a financial statement out of your business that you're losing money. And I'm surprised how many business owners I meet that do not have this level of detail at all. So they have their bank statements, they know they have deposits, and they have checks are getting written in cash and that kind of thing, but they don't have any document that summarizes how much went out and how much came in and what they kept. And you don't have to be an accountant. I took not the first accounting class in college, and still to this day know very little about accounting, but it doesn't take a lot of education or experience to look at the bottom line on a statement and say, all right, is what we're doing working? And it's a shame, because I see businesses that they feel like they're doing really well to the business owner, but they're just eating up their capital. So they start with $500,000 in investment for their working capital, let's say, and over the years they wake up one day and it's all gone, because what they thought was profit was just money they were taking out as they were taking the capital out of the business.
And it happens way too often. It's really a shame. And it's something that needs to be fixed, and I'm doing my part to at least help them. And the cool thing about Profit First is, even if they don't know how to read the accounts, their bank balances, which is what they look at, will show them very quickly where they're running out of money and whether or not there's profit showing up in the profit account. And when tax time comes, they're always prepared. They hate it, but they go, hey, I got a big tax bill. Look at that. There's money to pay it. Hurrah. And they get on with life. And so it's been quite helpful. And it also helps them. I've got a lot of retailers who need to place large orders nowadays. They've changed their business model because of COVID. And to be able to place that large order, you either need capital or a loan. And so we're creating systems to replenish as items get sold so that they have the dollars ready to make their next order. So it makes it a lot easier. So we're here today to talk about your book, and it's called Profit Wise: How to Make More Money in Business by Doing the Right Thing. And I've noticed a lot of times when people hear the word profit, they freak out. They think we're evil, or that it's bad, or we're doing something wrong, or we're using people. And I think none of that could be further from the truth. And I thought this would be an awesome topic to just get through people's mindset of why profit's good, how to use it appropriately. And I know throughout the book, you talk about that. I think, kind of to get this kicked off is you talk about taking the high road to be more profitable. And can that go together? Can you take the high road and be more profitable?
That's what I'm discussing in the book. And in the first chapter explains the theory behind it, and I'll get into a little of that. But the rest of the book is specifically how you do it, because I didn't want to write one of those business books, Death by Platitude, where they talk about how you need to focus on the customer. It's like happy birthday, like I wasn't already focusing on the customer. But the major theme of the book, I think I can describe it like this, is that earning a profit in your business and serving the world at the same time go very nicely together. And there are ways that they don't necessarily go together. If you just like writing really big checks to charities, well, you can bankrupt yourself doing that. Not that I wouldn't be opposed to businesses sharing their wealth in that way. I think it's great. But I'm not talking about that kind of approach. What I'm looking at is, I'll give you an example. One of the things I'm very proud of that we've done at the Subaru dealership is that we've attracted a diverse team that many of these people would not have traditionally been included in the opportunities in the car business. So we have a lot of military veterans, both active duty and veteran. I should say the veterans and active duty military service members. Let me phrase it that way. LGBTQ members. Our first salesperson when we opened in 1998 was a man who was gay and fired by the business where he worked because he was gay. So they lost that talent, but we brought it on. And we have female technicians, which is almost unheard of in the car business. Nationwide, only about 1% of automotive technicians are women, and we currently have 4. We've had as many as 7, depending on the time. It varies, obviously, over the years. So these are the ways that we're serving the community by including people that have not traditionally had the opportunities in the car business. But we're getting something out of it too. And what we're getting out of is a lot of talent that would otherwise not be available to us. And over the years, there have been periods, and we're in one right now, where the demand for really qualified people is so high. You can't just run an ad and get 100 qualified people to show up to interview. It's just not like that. So our ability to draw from a larger pool of people over the years has served us very well and has allowed us to make a lot more money than we otherwise would have. But it's also served the communities that these people are coming from. Obviously, it's given the actual team members additional skills and income opportunities and benefits that wouldn't have been available to them. But also the families that they come from, the communities that they're coming from, their neighborhoods are stronger because they can fix up their homes and they can afford to do things that they wouldn't have otherwise been able to do. So that's one example of many that I describe in the book of how you can earn a really good living for yourself, more money than you would otherwise make if you weren't attuned to figuring out how you can make the world a better place at the same time.
And I always talk about that. In the one area that I never encourage people to cut is in people. As a matter of fact, I encourage people to pay their employees more and to treat them well. And you've worked with a lot of people in the car business is cutthroat in many senses. How important do you find people are to your success?
I guess you ask any business owner, and on some level, they'll recognize that their teams are central to their ability to earn a living. But I wish they're relying on the financial statement that just showed the cost of turnover, the cost of hiring mistakes, the cost of having the wrong person in the wrong seat on Jim Collins' hiring bus. I think there's an underappreciation for the value of keeping good people, retaining them, acquiring them in the first place to your team, and a lack of appreciation of just how expensive it is to lose them. Let me give you a perfect example. We had a saleswoman who was on our team for 10 years, recently left, and she had to leave because she fell in love and moved with her man to Kentucky, which is probably the best reason in the world to leave us, for love. So that's okay. We understand, even if we hired or retired, that we can't keep everybody. It wasn't like she left because of the environment or the pay wasn't competitive or any of that. I mean, they're just life changes. But anyway, one of her customers came in a few months after that looking for her. He had bought 3 cars from her, and they always got along great. It was just so easy. And he had to start from scratch with a new salesperson, and who was also a very friendly guy. But whatever it is, the two of them just got off on the wrong foot. And he bought a car and had a terrible experience. And I was copied on the letters back and forth, trying to make him happy about the experience after the fact. And I'm watching this and I'm saying, wow, was Lori's departure expensive? Because had she been here, that transaction would have gone so smoothly. And that loss cannot be captured on a financial statement. There's really no way. It's just something that I've come to understand by observing it, that I recommend business owners really invest in their ability to acquire the right talent and retain the right talent over the years. And if you can take that long-term view, you'll never keep everybody, but you'll do a lot better than just, surviving the churn.
And hiring the wrong frontline people creates more trouble and more bad outcomes and more customer complaints and more people. Like, they won't even complain. They'll just never come back. You won't see them again, unfortunately. And so that is a big part of it. I try to tell people you should hire for values and culture more so than hiring specifically for skills. I mean, skills are teachable, but to teach value and culture is difficult. What have you found?
Oh, I totally agree. And I take this is kind of a curious example that I use, but I watched the U.S. Navy, and I didn't serve, but I'm fascinated by things military and particularly aviation. And you think about a modern U.S. aircraft carrier, it's about the size of a football field. It's a very frenetic airport operated in very tight quarters. They enlist 19, 20-year-olds, 18-year-olds, and bring these people aboard. In less than a year, they qualify these people to launch planes off the deck, to move highly explosive ordnance around and load that onto planes. They train these people how to operate the arresting cables that grab these $30 million FA-18s that come cruising into the deck and need to stop really quickly. And if you think about how hazardous and responsible those positions are and how quickly the Navy can get those motivated, smart people up to speed on those positions, when you contrast that with the typical recruiting ad that requires 5 years of experience and a master's degree to do half the positions in the company, and you shake your head and you realize that the companies have set their bars way too high. And as a result, they're missing a lot of talent that would be very eager to come aboard their company if they had some system for training people and getting them up to speed without all that prior experience.
And you actually recruit people by doing a different kind of ad, don't you? In promotion for those jobs?
Yeah, so I talk about it in the hiring chapter in the book. I talk about the system we developed through trial and error over many years. And we start way back. Let me just take it a little farther upstream from where you're going. We'll sail down to where you are. We have a really clear idea of who we're looking for before we even sit down and run an ad. We know the kind of people that are already on our team. We understand that we're offering a different experience. So we're going to need people. We actually prefer people without experience because it's just easier for us to train someone from scratch. rather than try to mentally erase all the bad habits they're going to import from another business. So we have a pretty clear idea, and it's written for each position who we're looking for. And then we write the ad looking for the qualities that we know we need in that person. And we try to put a little sizzle in there. Most recruiting ads read like a bureaucrat wrote them. And the reason they do is because a bureaucrat wrote them. But we're salespeople, right? So shame on us if we can't find a way to make it a little exciting to think that maybe you could join our team. So we talk about all the neat things we do in terms of our environmental efforts to reduce our impact on Mother Earth. And we talk about the diverse team and all the different backgrounds that they have and the exciting opportunities we have to bring people in at a entry level and grow them into managers, 6-figure income positions over some years of effort. So those are the things that we want to include in the ad. And then, that's kind of the introductory part of the process. Of course, we have more steps after that.
And that's an important part is to attract the right people to begin with and to get them in. Because as you said, we're in a very tight market right now. And it's very hard to find good people. And the last thing you want to do is have people leave. And most people don't leave the company, they leave the manager. So creating that good atmosphere and making that come together is important. I love acronyms. And you had an acronym in your book that I've never heard before, which was WAIT. Why am I talking? And so it begs the question, because you're in the car business, right? So how do you become a smooth listener instead of a smooth talker?
Yeah, thank you for that question. I find that business owners in particular have a hard time listening because they get rewarded for everything they say. When you think about you're surrounding yourself with people who have some financial benefit to being with you, everybody works for you, and even the vendors that come in, they're going to laugh at your dumb jokes and they're going to keep on encouraging you to talk. But the problem, of course, when you're talking is that you're not learning anything, and it's just a bad habit that I see a lot of business owners doing. And so I've over the years, I'm just as guilty as anybody else was, and I just started noticing that I'd be in a meeting. And it's like I'd end up talking half the time thinking that everybody on our team needed to hear. And eventually I realized that it would probably be better if I just shut up and let everybody else solve the problem. And then if they were stuck or there was something that I thought was really important that they were missing, then I could chime in later in the meeting and make sure that point of view got represented. But the beauty of staying out of the way and staying quiet is that you let the people who are actually responsible for solving the problem figure out how they want to solve the problem. So they're more invested. It's their idea. It's not coming from the top down. They're going to do what they want to do. Now, there are, of course, times when I just disagree and whatever. So I have a chance to voice my opinions, and we can hash those things out. But it all starts with shutting up. And it's really just being aware enough to be in the moment and realize, you know what? I'm talking too much. It's time to just stop talking and start asking questions. And that's a really good way to get yourself out of that mode of just going on and on and on is to stop and ask a question.
And it also lets you create a company where you don't have to solve every problem and have a headache every day because everyone's coming to you with every little thing because you haven't taught them how to solve problems on their own and set the expectation that that's just part of their job. Solve problems. Go do it. You don't necessarily need me. And at least for me, I find people can probably do stuff better than me. So let them.
Yeah, sure enough.
One of the chapters, I think, or at least one of the things that I picked up was the concept of negotiations. And I think it's a skill that we have lost. And I'm an immigrant, so where we come from, everything's negotiated. I just grew up that's just the way you do things. And as kids, you naturally negotiate everything, right? Parents and the kids are always negotiating with their parents. But it seems in the world today, it seems like we are less likely to do that. And even in the car business, they've got a whole new mantra in some places of we don't negotiate. Here's a price because people dislike it so much. I'd love to hear your thoughts on negotiations.
Yeah, just with reference to our retail operations, that's, believe it or not, generally where we are. We don't advertise ourselves as one price, but the internet has made it such that if you're not advertising pretty much the lowest price you can accept, then you won't even get the phone call. So people are sometimes a little surprised when they come in and they're like, "Oh, well, this car's, it's a $40,000 car and it's $4,000 off," which is pretty much the whole margin in a car. I'll give you a little cheat sheet that there's generally about 10% between cost and there's about 10% margin between cost and MSRP on just about any car. I mean, give or take. I mean, there are exceptions, but as a rule of thumb, you can use that. So we'll be like zeroed out on profit, just hoping that we can get a service customer or something like that out of the thing, or maybe we've got too many of that particular model stacked up in an era, not now, but in other times when there's too many cars of that particular color or type or whatever it is, and we're just trying to move them. And they're surprised that we won't discount anymore, and they're frustrated. They're like, "Well, you guys are a car dealer and you don't negotiate." So it's difficult for us to kind of navigate that with customers who, there are many who appreciate it. They just kind of want to know, like, what's the price? We just skip all the back and forth and the salespeople going to the sales manager, and we've been able to take a lot of that out. But some people, they just don't know what to do with it. But let me just more broadly speak about negotiation. And something I've learned, obviously working in a car dealership, you just get a lot of experience working with people. And I think the most important thing for me to share about negotiating is just to remember that there's really nothing that complicated or intimidating about it. When I think about the word negotiation, that to me is just two people or two parties trying to align their interests and their goals. And it doesn't have to be hostile, and there doesn't necessarily have to be any ultimatums. There's no reason that a person in a car showroom has to say, "Well, if you don't take my offer, then I'm going to walk out of here in a huff." I mean, there's generally no reason to do that. If there's a budget that someone's trying to meet, then really what we need is the customer to share all the information they have about what they're trying to accomplish, and then we'll try to accomplish it. And if we can't, then we can give them alternatives. Or they can choose, it's like, well, this just isn't going to work for me, and they can leave. But there's, I don't really see negotiation as a really adversarial thing. I just think it is as a cooperative effort on the part of two people or two parties to work things out. And so that's why in the book, in the whole chapter, I don't really focus so much on how to save $100 on the purchase of an item, but rather how do you get what you want in a way that it doesn't cause you too much stress and lets the person that you're working with get what they need too. Because if they're not winning, they're not going to be able to do business with you.
And you want them to stay in business because you're going to need service. And so you have to be fair. And money is not always the only negotiating point. There are a variety of different negotiating points. And if you take the time to, as you talked about earlier, listen to what their needs are and better need, then you can find points where negotiations can take place with both parties winning overall. One of the core principles of Profit First is once you get yourself running, to think about your business in a different way and start to look at it and say, is there a better way? You talk about it a little differently in the book. You talk about understanding the cause of the problem and finding a better solution. You had an example in there of a squeaky car, but you share that.
Yeah, sure. So the thing, again, it's just a classic car business story that there are these cars, most of them don't break very much. And the ones that do, it's usually pretty easy to fix them. This is before I bought the Subaru dealership, and I was cutting my teeth, learning the skills of how to work in a car dealership at the Volvo dealership where I worked when I graduated from college. And I was a service advisor, so I wasn't the technician. I was the person who worked with the customer. And it was a mid-90s Volvo that had a squeak in the tailgate that we'd take that thing apart. We could not make the squeak go away. And what we eventually, fortunately, Volvo had a field engineer from Volvo. From Volvo, Volvo in Sweden, where the man that they sent us had actually had been an engineer developing the car before it was even produced. And the trick is that he came and we talked at great length. He ended up writing this meticulous set of instructions for the technician to follow that didn't involve replacing a single part, which I was really surprised. And the technician did follow the list, and the squeak, it never came back. That car might have been in 6 times, 7 times, but after he gave us that list of suggestions to try, it never came back. And here's the money line in the whole experience, that the fellow's name was Johan. He said, Jeff, the problem is that you were trying to stop a squeak. And my solution was I was just trying to move that squeak outside the range of human hearing. And that's what all those adjustments that he gave us did. So his point was the car was still squeaking every time it went over a bump. Maybe the dog could hear it, but no one in the car could. And there are so many situations in a business setting where you really can't solve the underlying problem, but there are things you can do to move it outside the range of human hearing. So let me add, I know we're running short on time, so I'll make it quick, but we had our jump boxes kept disappearing. Those are the things that you started dead car battery with, which happens a lot in a car dealership. And we had one, and it kept on going missing. And so our service manager got so frustrated he locked it up with a chain. But of course, whenever you needed the jump box, you needed to find him and the key, which wasn't a very good solution. So what we ended up doing, we weren't able to solve the problem of jump boxes disappearing because there's just too many people using them and forgetting that they've left in the trunk of a car. We just bought 5 of them. They're about $100 a piece. And so every year, we lose about 5 a year. So every year we have to spend about $500 to replace these things, and heaven knows where they go. I mean, it's just, I'm sure there are customers that they get their new car home and they're like, what's this thing in the trunk? And they're like, oh, it's a jump box. Maybe I'll hang on to it. I don't know where they all go, but we lose them. So we weren't able to stop the jump box problem from occurring. We just moved it outside the range of human hearing in the sense that we were able to implement a solution that worked, even though we couldn't make the boxes stop disappearing.
You have to be creative in the business, and you have to figure out different ways to do that. And some of them can be quite creative. And some, it shouldn't be something that's expensive. We find inexpensive. And in this case, you talked about very low expense for jump boxes and no parts at all to fix the squeaky car. But you've got to think about your business and really figure that out. So right now, you say you're living in the wisdom years. What does that mean to you?
So I've divided my life to date into 3 seasons. You could use another model like seasons of the year, spring, summer, fall, winter. And for me, because there are only 3 seasons, I don't know, I guess there might be a 4th, but I haven't lived through that one yet and figured it out. The 3 I've lived through are, the first one is the growing years. And these are professional seasons I'm talking about. And the growing years are when you're acquiring your skills. That might be when you're working for somebody else and just trying to establish the network of people that you'll rely on later, the connections you'll need for financing, or maybe it's the qualified people that you'll end up hiring and attracting them to come to you, even though they're working for someone else now. Those are the growing years, and those might have been my 20s. Because we opened a business, I was 26. We opened Planet Subaru. And then by early 30s, I was moving into what I call the power years. And the power years, this is, if I was going to be a Nobel Prize winning physicist, this is when I'd be producing my best work. So in my case, there won't be a Nobel Prize, but this is when I was able to grow the business and start systematizing all of these principles that we talked about to make sure, like, for example, our hiring process didn't entirely depend on me interviewing and determining whether we should hire every person on our team. That's when we developed a group of people, the management team, that could do that with us. So those are the power years. And now I find myself in the wisdom years. And what's different about the wisdom years is, and I can tell you at age 49, if I'm representative of what happens to most business owners, you don't have the same energy. I can't set the alarm early anymore and jump out of bed. And sometimes I need an afternoon nap. And it's okay, though, because I spent the power years developing people and systems that could run the business without me investing Herculean amounts of effort anymore. So I call them the wisdom years because now it's much more about making good decisions and looking ahead and trying to invest my energy in charting the future instead of just making sure that customers are served every day.
And it's probably a lot more peaceful and a lot more fun.
Yeah. Well, it's. I referred earlier to that the football metaphor. I much more enjoy being a coach on the sidelines and sending the beat up quarterback back in to throw the passes than being that beat up quarterback.
If people would like to learn more about you, about the book, what's the best way for them to be able to do that?
So at jeffmorrill.com, and that's jeffmorrill.com. 2 L's at the end there. I may have always said one. Morrill. There we go. It's hard even for me to spell. They can buy the book. They can read bonus chapters that we couldn't fit in the book. There's a lot of resources that we use every day in our business that didn't make sense to be included in the book that might be useful to business owners. You can also get directly in touch with me, and I love to hear from listeners and readers about the things they're working on and maybe what they think of any feedback they have on the book or the contents of our discussion today. If listeners are interested in learning more about that alternative business model that we have at the dealership, probably the best place to go is planetsubaru.com.
Cool. And I will put the link to your website in the show notes to make it easy for people to find you. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Rocky. I appreciated those thoughtful questions.
Wow. What a wealth of experience. So glad we had Jeff on to share how to make money by doing the right thing in business. If you enjoyed this, I recommend you check out his book, Profit Wise. I really enjoyed reading it. You can find a link to his website in the show notes. Remember, you don't need more resources, you need to be more resourceful. We focus on the bottom line. If you want a done-for-you service, you can have me as your Chief Profitability Officer because you have your zone of genius and want to spend your time doing what you love. I only work with a handful of clients, so they get my full attention. I work with business owners who have or are growing to $500,000 to $5 million in revenue. You can use the scheduling link in the show notes to get on my calendar for a good fit conversation to see if I'm the right person to support you and how I can help you. If you want to learn about living the life of your dreams, check out my other podcast, Richer Soul. As we close out, let's repeat the mantra. Revenue is vanity. Profit is sanity, and cash is king. Have an abundant and profitable week.